When dimensioning your orthographic drawing, probably one of the first things that you'll want to do is set up a dimension style. If you see, I have an orthographic drawing open and I have my contextual ribbon that goes along with the orthographic drawings. And you'll see a section here that does say dimensions. You'll see a small drop down arrow in the corner here. And if you select that arrow, you'll see that you get the Dimension Style Manager. For those of you that are previously acquainted with AutoCAD, you'll see it's the same Dimension Style Manager. But I'll just go through some of the steps briefly. So if you want to modify an existing one, which I do not recommend modifying the one that comes with the program, but go ahead and start a new one, and then you can start one that's based on the standard here. And rather than saying copy of standard, I'll go ahead and call this one the ortho. And we'll just go ahead and continue. And if I want to make it annotative, I can go ahead and check that off there. So if I go ahead to continue, then you see we get this other dialog box that comes up to where we can edit such things as the color, line type, line weight, etc. Setting up your extension beyond dimension lines, offsetting from the origin, so on and so forth. You can also choose how you want your symbols and arrows to be represented. Text, you can pick the text with different colors, and you can also create text styles that you may want by using the text style editor within the dimensions. You can choose how you want dimensions to fit. Probably one of the more important things on here is how do you want your units to be represented on here. So if you want decimal units, of course you can choose those, but you have the option to go into engineering and architectural as well. And of course, with your precision, let's say that I chose architectural, then I can choose if I want it to a 1/16 of an inch, or exactly how precise do I want it. The same thing with decimal and engineering. You can go to how many places you want behind the decimal point. Okay, you can choose what you want your decimal separator to be, so on and so forth, and you can go through all of these. You also have a section where you can do alternate units, whether you want them displayed or not. Check that off if you want to work with the alternate units. And then, of course, all your tolerances here. One thing that I probably should mention whenever we were doing the other units, when we have it fit, we can decide where we want the text placed at. And as well as where do we want the text placed at, how do we want it aligned? Do we want it aligned with the dimension line, or do we want it placed horizontally? So once you've done all of that, then you can go ahead and you can set that style current if that's the one that you want, and then it's going to appear with the rest of your dimension styles. Let's go ahead and put a dimension on our orthographic drawing. I'm going to go ahead and verify that I have the dimension style that I want to use. I'm going to use the drop down in my dimension panel. I'll see that I do have my ortho annotative set right here, and that's going to be an annotative drawing so that I will have a consistent height amongst my measurements as regardless of which scale that we're going to use. I'll go ahead and close that since I have that correct. I'm going to make sure that I'm also in paper space here by clicking outside the drawing, and then I'm going to go ahead and activate my dimension. Now you'll see that I'm prompted to select a first extension either by picking endpoints, or I can do select object. For this first one, I'm just going to do a select object, so I'll hit enter, and then that will allow me to select this pipe section here to dimension, and when I do that, it picks that section of pipe there. Okay, so that's one way of doing it. Now I'm going to go ahead and take this one out, and this time we'll do it by section. So I'm going to go ahead, and this time I'm going to look for an endpoint. So I'll do a shift right click so I can set my snap so I can go for a little accuracy here. And I'll pick this endpoint starting there, and I'll pick another endpoint that's going to go here. And now I can place that dimension there. All right, so now we have another type of measurement that we can use. Let's say that we want to bring a baseline type dimension across. Then we can go back into where our dimensions are here. And we have the choice that we can use this baseline dimension. You'll see you have a choice out of continue or baseline, but I'm going to pick the baseline. And what it's going to do is it's going to continue from here. So I'll go ahead and I'll continue to pick endpoints where I want to measure from. And I'll go ahead to there. there, and then I'll go ahead to where that is. Then I'll go ahead and I will do enter, and you'll see I've set up a baseline dimension. Now, of course, I can use my grips to space these out and move these over if I have any crowding. Now, if you'll notice, the text height here is a little much for the drawing scale that we're using, but that's actually easily fixed. I can change the text height that I have. I can go ahead and modify my ortho annotative, and I can go into where my text height is, and maybe I want to bring that down to 1/8 of an inch. And all I have to do is OK that, and you'll see everything is brought down to 1/8 of an inch here. Now, if you want to change your drawing scale, and if you click onto the viewport, you'll be able to see the drawing scale here. If you notice here, you'll see the drawing scale there, or if you go into your properties, you'll be able to see where your scale is. But let's go ahead and let's edit this view, and then we'll change that drawing scale. And once that populates and you get your contextual ribbon up, you can take this part, and maybe instead of 1/4 of an inch is equal to a foot, we could go ahead and say that 1/8 of an inch is equal to a foot. And you'll see that everything has adapted. Now, I did this also to point something out. Dimensions are not automatically updated. If you change if you change drawing scale or you change the locations of pipe, you will have to go back and redo those dimensions. As you can see, they're still reading properly, but the dimensions will not automatically update. Kind of one of the shortcomings of the orthographic drawing, but I did want to point that out to you so you'll know that that has to be manually adjusted. So if you can go ahead and you can take them out and then just go ahead and redo the dimensioning process, much the same way that we did before, whether you want to choose it by object or if you want to do it by picking by the endpoints. But just don't forget, if you change anything in the orthographic drawing, you will have to go back and redo the dimensions manually. And that is why it is really recommended to do your dimensions as the very last step when you will be doing no more editing.